Good afternoon, everybody. You're listening to Lake Stevens Vikings Varsity Baseball here from Glacier Peak High School. My name is Payne Patchett, and once again, this is game number 18 of the 2019 Varsity Baseball season. The Lake Stevens Vikings playing the second of two conference games against the Glacier Peak Grizzlies as they are playing here at Glacier Peak High School in Snohomish, Washington. Now, Lake Stevens, they are in their toughest situation all year, in which if they win this game, their chances of going into the Wesco playoffs are still in the air. But if they lose to the Glacier Peak Grizzlies here today, their chances of going into the first ever West King tournament are dead and gone. And they're playing against a Glacier Peak Grizzlies team that are already eliminated from playoff contention with an 8-10 overall record and 3-6 in conference play. Lake Stevens enters today with an 8-9 overall record, with 8 of those 9 losses being in conference play. They are 3-8 in conference play. Here's the situation. If they lose, they're done. If they win, then they have to wait on Monroe to beat the Kamiak Knights in both of their games later this week for the Vikings to take the final spot in the West King playoffs. But first, let's pay attention to today. The starting pitching matchup for both teams. For the Lake Stevens Vikings, pitching in his 7th game and his 7th start is number 11, Devin McWaters. He is 1-4 with an ERA of 5.92. While the Glacier Peak Grizzlies, the guy on the mound is looking for some redemption. It is junior Noah Stingley. For anyone who does not remember, in last year's Wesco first-round matchup, Stingley was a relief pitcher that pitched into the 9th inning, where Christian LaPierre hit a 2-run home run over the right field wall. It gave the Vikings an 8-6 lead, and Stingley was the losing pitcher. Now he's looking to exact some revenge against the Lake Stevens Vikings and prevent them from going to the playoffs here at Glacier Peak High School. When we come back, it'll be the top of the first inning. Stingley will face off against the left fielder Tanner Lynn, the shortstop Hunter Velasco, and the third baseman Theron Perkins. As we start off this game from Glacier Peak High School, once again, my name is Payne Patchett. You are listening to Lake Stevens Vikings Varsity Baseball. And we are now back into the top of the first inning here from Glacier Peak High School. The starting pitcher for the Grizzlies, once again, number 55, Noah Stingley. The junior facing off against the senior left-hander, the leadoff hitter, the left fielder, number 23, Tanner Lind. Stingley stepping on the rubber, looking at the catcher, Hayden Matre, for the sign. Wind up in the first pitch. Fly ball, foul. Count starts at 0-1. And the first 3 hitters for the Lake Stevens Vikings, left fielder Tanner Lind, the starting shortstop, number 10, Hunter Velasco, the junior right-hander, and the third baseman Theron Perkins, the senior right-hander, the 0-1. Another foul ball, fastball. Count at 0-2. The lineup for the 8-9 Lake Stevens Vikings, as told by manager Josh White. The first 3 hitters, Tanner Lind, the left fielder, shortstop Hunter Velasco, and Theron Perkins. The cleanup hitter, the second baseman, number 12, Aaron Lampinen. The 0-2 and the curve. Strike 3 called. And Tanner strikes out looking for the first out at the top of the first. Here is the shortstop, Hunter Velasco. As Velasco entering today's game, 12 for 39, a 308 average, 4 doubles and 7 RBIs. Is also 8 for 9 on stolen bases. Timeout by Glacier Peak. The starting catcher, number 6, Hayden Matre, walking up to the mound to talk to Stingley. For the rest of the lineup of the Vikings, the 5-hitter, the right fielder, Trey Long. Matre walks back behind the plate. The 6-hitter, designated hitter, Bailey Corley. The 7-hitter, first baseman, Tate Bruss. The 8-hitter, the catcher, Tommy Lindgren. And the 9-hitter is the center fielder, Cameron Austin. And the first pitch from Stingley, fly ball, that is out foul. Fastball above the strike zone. And the defensive positions for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. The starting pitcher on the mound, Noah Stingley. Behind the plate is Hayden Matre. And the 0-1, curve upstairs. 1-1. At the infield for Glacier Peak at third base is Chase Rogers. And at shortstop is Tyson Willis to wind up 1-1. And fastball foul. Another foul ball. Lake Stevens hitter so far getting a piece of the baseball, but it goes over the wrong fence behind home plate in foul territory. And the count is now 1 ball and 2 strikes. Second base for Glacier Peak is Ryan Kinney. And at first base is Pierce Levengood. Wind up in the 1-2 pitch. A strike 3 called. Back-to-back backwards Ks for Noah Stingley to start the top of the first. Here is the number 3 hitter and the third baseman, Theron Perkins. And now we're going into the outfield. At left field is Peyton Smith. Center field is Drew Brown. And at right field is Ethan Barker with Grant Doman hitting for the pitcher. First pitch and a off-speed fastball 0-1. Theron Perkins, the hottest hitter on the Lake Stevens team, a .397 average, 23 for 58. And the 0-1 fastball outside. Count is even at 1 ball and 1 strike outside of the strike zone, away from the right-hander. Theron is 13 for 14 in stolen bases, a team-high 7 doubles and a team-high 2 triples, with 17 RBIs on the year. The 1-1 and a swing and a miss foul hits off of the home plate umpire. Count is now 1-2. Another fastball. It would be Theron with 12 runs, 4 walks, has struck out 11 times, and has been hit 5 times against pitching this season. And once again, the catcher Hayden Matray going to talk to Noah Stingley on the mound. As Glacier Peak also bringing in a huge number of reserves in addition to Lake Stevens to wind up in the 1-2. Swing and a miss, the curve inside. And Noah Stingley strikes out the side in the top of the first. There'll be no runs, no hits, no errors, and nobody left on. It is Lake Stevens nothing. Glacier Peak coming up. Devin McWaters once again 1-4 with an ERA of 5.92. He is walking up to the mound and he'll face off against the left fielder Payne Smith, center fielder Drew Brown, and the first baseman Pierce Levengood, as Glacier Peak looks to start something in the bottom of the first inning. And we are now back in the bottom of the first inning. No score between Lake Stevens and Glacier Peak. Devin McWaters making his 7th start of the year on the mound. He'll face off against the leadoff hitter, the starting left fielder, number 18, Peyton Smith, against the senior left-hander. The first pitch, fastball low, strike one looking. And Devin McWaters, 1-4, 5.92, 20 in a third innings, allowing 17 earned runs. The 0-1, fastball, strike 2. He's hovering around the bottom of the strike zone on those 2 pitches. In 20 and a third, he's allowed 25 hits, 17 earned runs. He has walked 21 batters and has struck out 24 batters. No balls and 2 strikes. Devin McWaters getting the sign, wind up, pitch, low, fastball, ball 1. And the first 3 hitters for the 8 and 10 Glacier Peak Grizzlies, as told by manager Bob Blair, Peyton Smith, Drew Brown, and Pierce Levengood. The 1-2. Inside, it'll hit Peyton Smith, and Glacier Peak has a base runner to start the bottom of the first inning. Went a little too inside on that one. And now Glacier Peak has a base runner. It brings up the starting center fielder, Drew Brown. The pitcher toes the rubber, looking for the sign, steps off. And he stretches, looks over a runner at first base. Drew Brown 0 for 1 with a pair of hit by pitches. First pitch, fastball, strike 1, looking to the right-hander. And Devin looks over at first. Toes the rubber, gets the sign 0-1. Ball gets away from Tommy Lindgren, and Peyton Smith is going to go to second on a wild pitch as it evens the count at 1-1. And the middle of the order for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies, Hayden Matray, the catcher, second baseman Ryan Kinney, and the right fielder Ethan Barker, the stretch, and the 1-1. And a strike 2 looking, fastball right down the middle. And the bottom 3 hitters, the designated hitter Grant Doman, the third baseman Chase Rogers, and the shortstop Tyson Willis. Gets the sign to stretch. Devin looks over at second, 1-2. Outside. Nope, strike 3 called. A late call by the home plate umpire. That ball was outside. But the home plate umpire will call it a strikeout. The first out for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies in the bottom of the first inning. Here's the first baseman, number 42, Pierce Levengood. Has been showing some offensive power all year. He's 0 for 1. This one a ground ball. That is a fair ball. As that one just gets past the line. The Lake Stevens dugout does not like that. Throw to second. It is not in time to second base. And Pierce Levengood hits one down the third base line. And Glacier Peak has an early 1-0 lead to start the bottom of the first. That ball was fielded right near the line by Tanner Lynn, the left fielder, who was cut off by the shortstop Hunter Zalasko, who tried soft tossing it to the second baseman Aaron Lampinen to try and get him out. He is not in time, so there's still a runner at second. Glacier Peak has a run scored. They are up 1-0 on the first hit of the game. Devin McWaters against the starting catcher Hayden Matre. It was 1 for 3 with a run scored. First pitch, foul ball. This one off the glove of Tate Brust and over the head of Lampinen. As 11 good will round around third. The throw home is not in time. And Glacier Peak has another run on the board off of an error by the first baseman Tate Brust. Tried fielding it backhanded. There is a pinch runner for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. And pinch running for Matre will be number 5, Kento Clymer. He was a pinch runner back on Friday's game at Lake Stevens High School, in which he pinch ran once again for the catcher Hayden Matre when he got a base hit in that 4-run fourth inning. Glacier Peak now has a 2-0 lead, with the Grizzlies bringing in their 5th batter of the bottom of the first. Here's the second baseman Ryan Kinney. It was 1 for 3 with a single and a strikeout and a run as well. Devin, first pitch. Upstairs fastball, ball 1. And the 1-0 pitch inside fastball, ball 2. Looks over at first. And McWaters in the stretch, 2-1, fastball, strike 1 looking. Once again, Glacier Peak with a runner at first. Clymer at first base. And McWaters toes the rubber. He stretches. Gets the sign from the catcher, Tommy Lindgren. Looks over at first. Throw to first is not in time to get Kento Clymer, as there's still 1 out in the bottom of the first inning. Noah Stingley expected to go back on the mound. He threw 11 pitches as he struck out the side in the top of the first. 2 balls, 1 strike. Strikes at first, 2-1. Swing and a miss. Count is even at 2-2. And Devin gets the sign, checks his first, the stretch. McWaters to 2-2, foul ball. McWaters checks it first, the stretch, gets the sign, 2 balls, 2 strikes. This one low, full count, 3-2. And Devin in the stretch, shakes off the sign, throws to first, not in time to get Clymer again. Another close play at first as McWaters throws to the first baseman Tate Brust. Looks over at first to stretch McWaters. Once again, full count, wind up in the pitch. Inside, ball 4. Oh, and a close play inside. Clymer going to second. Ryan Kinney will go to first on a full count walk. Here is the starting right fielder, Ethan Barker, who is a huge contributor to Glacier Peak's 7-2 win over the Lake Stevens Vikings back on Friday. 2 for 3 with a couple of base hits and a run scored. Glacier Peak, guys at runner on first and second. Looks over at second, the stretch. McWaters, first pitch. Inside, ball 1. And McWaters to stretch, 1 ball, no strikes. Looks over at second towards Clymer. The wind-up swing and a miss. Count is even at 1-1. And there are 4 reserves for the Lake Stevens Vikings. That is Xander Fogel, Colton Hogel, Caden Pattison, and Ethan Jansen. Count at 1-1. Devin in the stretch, 1-1 inside, ball 2. So the defensive positions for the Lake Stevens Vikings: on the mound is Devin McWaters. Behind the plate is Tommy Lindgren. On the infield, we have Theron Perkins at third. Hunter Zalasko at shortstop. Second base is Aaron Lampinen. And at first base is Tate Brust. 2 balls and 1 strike. The stretch by Devin. Pitch. Foul ball. Evens the count at 2-2. In the outfield at left field is Tanner Lynn. Center field is Cameron Austin. And at right field is Trey Long. And in the batting lineup, hitting for Devin McWaters is Bailey Corley. And Devin the stretch. Runners on first and second. Looks over at second base to pitch. 2-2. Fly ball. That is in foul territory. Tate Brust and Trey Long running for it, trying to find it. And it'll fall foul. And the count stays at 2-2. The at-bat stays alive. As Devin once again 1 out in the bottom of the first. 2 balls, 1 strike. The stretch. Runners on first and second. Looks over at second base to wind up the pitch. Upstairs, gets to the backstop. And Tommy, the ball rolls slowly to Tommy Lindgren, and the runners will advance as it hits the backstop. Count once again full at 3-2 for the second consecutive at-bat. And Devin the wind up, the payoff pitch. Upstairs, ball 4. It is now bases loaded with 1 out. As the Lake Stevens manager, my mistake, the assistant coach, Paul Manabusen, walking up to the mound. As we'll go into the bottom of the first inning, Tate Brust and Tommy Lindgren now walking up to the mound as the 7th hitter in the inning, the designated hitter, Grant Doman, walks up to the plate as well. Doman, he went 1 for 4 with a 2-run double in the 4th inning, which was followed by a 2-run single by Chase Rogers, and that was with the bases loaded. Now here, Grant Doman once again at the plate with the bases loaded again, has a chance to knock in a number of more runs for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. Once again, it is Kento Clymer at third base, Ryan Kinney at second, and Ethan Barker at first.
Strike one.
And Devin the windup. First pitch. Strike 1 looking. And the base is loaded. Pitcher toes the rubber. Gets the sign. First pitch. My mistake. It's the backstop. Foul ball. Count now 0-2. And Devin McWaters now with a good result at 0-2. He toes the rubber, looks for the sign from the catcher, Tommy Lindgren. And the wind and the pitch, 0-2. And a slow grounder. This one fielded by Devin. Bobbles the baseball. Bases are still loaded. Throw to first is not in time. And Glacier Peak gets another run as Devin McWaters tries to field a slow roller right in front of the mound. It'll be another error for the Lake Stevens Vikings. Score is now 3-0. Glacier Peak. Here is the third baseman, Chase Rogers. Devin looking for the sign. Once again, bases are loaded with 1 out. Wind up in the first pitch, and strike 1 looking. And Devin gets the sign. Wind up 0-1. Check swing. Upstairs, ball 1. Devin looking for the sign. 1 ball and 1 strike. The wind up and the pitch from Devin. Ground ball screamer. That is fair ball. 1 run's going to score. Kinney's going to score. Ethan Barker's rounding around third. He will score. And the score is now 5-0 Glacier Peak. Another 2-run single by Chase Rogers. Grant Doman going to third. Now bring up the 9th batter of the inning and the starting shortstop, Tyson Willis. was a fastball that was just outside. It was a screamer, and it goes past the first base line for a fair ball. Score now 5-0 Glacier Peak. First pitch by Devin, way upstairs, ball one. And a timeout. By the home plate umpire talking to the manager, Josh Weidel, on the first base line. There's still one out in the bottom of the first. Count stays at 1 ball and no strikes. Devin looking for the sign, looking over at first base. Now in position to stretch the pitch. Low and ball 2. Looks over at first. Looks for the sign, the wind of the pitch. Inside, strike 1 looking. Count now 2 balls and 1 strike. And the 2-1 pitch on Willis. Upstairs, ball 3. Throw to third is not in time as Lindgren tries throwing to third to Grant Doman. It leaves away for Chase Rogers to go to second for a stolen base. Count stays at 2-1. My mistake, now 3-1. Upstairs, ball 4. It is the third walk by McWaters in the inning. Brings us to the top of the order again in Peyton Smith. Josh White walking up. Looks like he might take Devin McWaters out of the game. As the second mound meeting Estee Will, McWaters going back up. Walking up to the dugout, he'll bring in Colton Hogel, who will be making his 6th appearance of the year. We'll take a quick break here in the bottom of the first inning. Glacier Peak off of 2 hits and 2 errors. The Glacier Peak Grizzlies have a 5-0 lead over the visiting Lake Stevens Vikings. You are listening to Lake Stevens Vikings Varsity Baseball. And we are now back in the bottom of the first inning. Glacier Peak has gone through the lineup 1 whole time. They have scored 5 runs, and they have 3 on the base paths. As we go to the top of the order, Colton Hogel facing off against Peyton Smith for the first time. 1 out and the bases loaded. Gets a sign, the wind up at the first pitch. Fly ball, that is going out foul. That will go into the Glacier Peak dugout. Or my mistake, in the Glacier Peak bullpen, which is right next to the Glacier Peak dugout. To start the count at 0-1, Devin McWaters, an inning and a third, 35 pitches, 2 hits. Currently has 5 runs total, but only 1 will be earned towards his name. And the windup in the 0-1 curve. This one, a ground ball to Zelasco. Toss it to Lampin at second, and he cannot throw to first as it gets out of his grip. And a run will score. It'll be an RBI fielder's choice. Grant Doman will score. Score is now 6-0. It will be an out. Chase Rogers going to third. Tyson Willis will be out on the fielder's choice. And Lampinen looks like he had enough room, enough time to throw it, but the ball just got out of his grip. Here's the center fielder, Drew Brown. Colton Hogel getting the sign, looking at first. The stretch. And Colton, first pitch. And a low ball 1. And the inning stays alive once again, now 6-0. Runners on the corners for Glacier Peak. Colton Hogel getting the sign from the catcher, Tommy Lindgren. It is Chase Rogers at third, Peyton Smith at first base. Looks over at first. And the windup in the 1-0 of Chopper. This one going to Zelasco, who toss it to Lampinen again. And that will end the bottom of the first inning. But 6 runs will score for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. It is 6 runs off of 2 hits, 2 errors, and 2 runners left on. The score, Glacier Peak 6, Lake Stevens nothing. After 1, Glacier Peak, they have a huge lead to hold, and currently Noah Stingley with a huge lead to defend will face off against the middle of the order, Aaron Lampinen, the second baseman, right fielder Trey Long, and the designated hitter Bailey Corley. After striking out the side in the top of the first, when we come back, it'll be the top of the second inning. Lake Stevens 6, my mistake, Glacier Peak 6, Lake Stevens nothing. And we are now back in the top of the second inning. Lake Stevens looking to respond after allowing 6 runs off of 2 hits and 2 errors. And having Devin McWaters lead the game after only getting 1 out. First pitch from Noah Stingley, foul ball, fastball, and a 0-1 count to the starting second baseman, number 12, Aaron Lampinen. Noah Stingley will face off against the middle of the order, second baseman Aaron Lampinen, the right fielder Trey Long, and the designated hitter Bailey Corley. No balls and 1 strike. And the windup and the pitch, and a curve swing and a miss, strike 2. And Aaron Lampinen, 14 of 51, a .274 average, 4 doubles, 5 for 5 in stolen bases with 8 RBIs. Wind up in the 0-2. Fastball swing and a miss, strike 3. 4 batters faced, and all 4 have struck out against Noah Stingley so far as we go into the top of the second. Now here's the right fielder, Trey Long. And Stingley, the windup. First pitch, fly ball, foul. And Trey Long, a .209 average, 9 for 43 with 5 doubles and a triple, 7 for 8 in stolen bases with 5 runs, 3 walks, and has struck out 8 times. The stretch by Stingley. Got the sign from Hayden Matre, the windup and the pitch. Swing and a miss, strike 2, the off speed. Curve makes it 0-2. And Stingley, the windup, and the pitch, fly ball, foul. There's a number of games going on here in the numerous baseball and softball fields here right near Glacier Peak High School, such as a JV game as well between these same 2 teams. The windup and the pitch, chopper, this is foul. Almost goes into the Lake Stevens dugout along the first base line. Count stays at 0-2. We have a JV baseball game going on, Glacier Peak and Lake Stevens. We have a number of softball games as well. My best assumption is also varsity and JV between Glacier Peak and Cascade. The windup by Stingley, the 0-2. Hard hit shot, this one getting into the hole in right center field, going all the way to the wall. Trey is going to second, and he'll get there with a 1-out double. No, Trey is going to third as Ethan Barker bobbles the ball. Trey goes to third on a 1-out double and error by Trey Long. Ethan Barker, he had the ball when Trey was at second, and then Trey saw that Barker had trouble with the baseball, so he went to third. So it will be a double and an error by the right fielder, Ethan Barker. Now here is Bailey Corley making his first appearance at the plate as the designated hitter for the pitcher, now Colton Hogle. Lake Stevens, their first hit of the afternoon. They're just starting to trim this lead. First pitch, Stingley. First pitch, foul, fastball. Bailey Corley recently been swinging at that first pitch. He's looking to find the right pitch he wants, as he's one of a few power hitters in the lineup for the Vikings. Count is 0-1, the stretch by Stingley. And the windup in the pitch. And a curve, 0-2. My mistake, an off-speed fastball upstairs, 0-2. And Noah ahead of the count, the stretch. Trey at third. And the windup in the 0-2. And a short ground ball fielded by Kinney, the second baseman, who throws to first. It is in time, and a run will score. An RBI ground out by Bailey Corley. The Vikings get on the board for the first time. It is a now 6-1 lead for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. Now here is Tate Bruss, the starting first baseman. And so Bailey with his 4th RBI of the year. Here's Tate with a 185 batting average. First pitch, fly ball, foul.
There you go, catch.
Fastball, foul. Start the 0-1 count. Tate 5 for 27 with 3 doubles, on the year and 2 RBIs, 1 run, 1 strikeout, and has been hit once this season. Count stays at 0-1. The home plate umpire getting the number of baseballs that he needs. And they wind up at the 0-1. And it will hit Tate right on the left forearm. It is the second time this year that Tate has been hit. He will walk to first. Here is the catcher, Tommy Lindgren. And the catcher, Tommy Lindgren, 229 with 8 for 35 with 2 RBIs, 5 walks, has been struck out 7 times and has been hit once. And the lengths from home plate currently at left field 301, right field 705, right center field at 336, left center field at 356, dead center 385. First pitch, strike one looking. This hits a top part of the strike zone just barely. Noah looking at first in the stretch. Peeks over, gets the sign, looks at the plate. Next pitch, swing and a miss, strike 2. Count now, once again, no balls and 2 strikes. Noah ahead of the count. Looks over at first, checks the runner, goes to the plate. Looks over at first again, 0-2. Upstairs, ball 1. Off-speed curve just a little high. The count now 1-2. A very cloudy afternoon here at Glacier Peak High School, with just gray clouds as far as the eye can see. Stingley toes the rubber. And looks over at first base and checks the plate. He has a stretch. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Foul ball. Tommy stays alive. I want Tommy! And now Noah Stingley's toeing the rubber, looking at first. Count ball and 2 strikes. Pitch upstairs. Count is even 2-2. Fastball upstairs. Tommy fighting for it as Stingley toes the rubber again. Gets a sign from the catcher, Hayden Matre. Looks over at first base. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Stingley the pitch. Swing and a miss. That will end the top of the second. Strikeout number 5 on the afternoon for Stingley, but a run will score for Lake Stevens. They now trail by 5. 1 run on 1 hit, 1 error, and 1 runner left on. An RBI ground out by Bailey Corley after a 1-out double and error by Trey Long gets the first run on the board, as Colton Hogel will face off against the 3, 4, and 5 hitters Pierce Levengood, Hayden Matre, and Ryan Kinney, the first baseman, catcher, and second baseman, as they look to keep this a 6-1 game. Glacier Peak leads. And we are now back in the bottom of the second inning. Lake Stevens, they get a run on the board, but the Grizzlies still lead now by the score of 6-1. Colton Hogel on the mound will face off against the first baseman, number 42, Pierce Levengood. He hit that RBI double back in the bottom of the first inning that scored Peyton Smith from second. That was a very close play. It looked like it was going to be in foul territory. The stretch by Colton, the wind up in the first pitch, and a strike one looking a curve to start it off. He'll face off against the first baseman, Pierce Levengood, Hayden Matre, the catcher, and the second baseman, Ryan Kinney. And Colton the sign. Toes the rubber, looks for the sign upstairs. Tries an off-speed curve, goes a little high, ball 1. We got some games going on in between innings as well. We got some music going on in the background well. I'm getting stuck in my head a little bit. Colton checks the sign, 1-1. Wind up in the pitch. Hard hit shot, this one going in the center. Cameron Austin running, and cannot make the catch as it gets past Cameron. Pierce is going to second. It looks like he may be going to 3. He will not. Another double for Pierce Levengood, as that ball just got under the glove of a diving Cameron Austin in short center field. Now I'll bring up Hayden Matre, the catcher. Got on base after Tate Brust tried to field his chopper right next to the first base bag, backhanded, could not do it. And that scored Levengood from second. Colton entering this appearance is making a 6th appearance, 2-0 with an ERA of 6.12. In 8 innings, he has allowed 3 hits, 7 earned runs. He has walked 6 batters and struck out 8. That's his 2nd appearance in conference play. First pitch. Low fastball, ball 1. And Colton Pierce at second. Checks over at second, then back at the plate, 1-0. Outside, ball 2. Lake Stevens, they were in this very same position last season when they played in the first round of the 2018 Wesco 4A tournament. They played here in the first round at Glacier Peak High School against these same Grizzlies with a number of players graduating. Colton looking at second. Throw to second is not in time to the shortstop Hunters Alaska. What happened was that Glacier Peak took an early 5-0 lead, highlighted by a 3-run home run over the right field wall by Pierce Levengood, but the Vikings were able to come back, take a 6-5 lead. Glacier Peak was able to tie it at 6. And then Christian LaPierre in the top of the 9th won it 8-6 to wind up in the 2-0. Low ball 3.
Hey, get that ground ball.
And Glacier Peak ended their year with a 10-11 record. There were a number of great guys on that team, one of them being Jackson Sveum, who was a really, really good two-way player offensively and both defensively, both behind the plate and at the mound. 3 balls and no strikes. A stretch by Colton, looks over at second, then back at the plate, 3-0. And a strike 1 looking off-speed fast right down the middle. And Colton smiling a little bit, hearing over at Trey Long at right field, trying to give him some moral support. 3 balls, 1 strike, the stretch. 3-1, swung on, fly ball, foul. Count is now full. We saw the very same thing when the Vikings played against Mount Vernon, that Trey Long over at right field, the best way I can say what Trey is doing is that he's giving the pitcher or everyone out in the infield some moral support against a dire situation like this with a leadoff runner now at second. And the stretch by Colton, full count 3-2. Looks over at second, then back at the plate, full. Upstairs, ball 4. And Matre has walked on a full count. Runners on first and second for the second baseman, Ryan Kinney. He was walked with a full count off of Devin. And Matre once again replaced by Kento Clymer at first.
Takes you to the bag, go there.
So Glacier Peak 10-11 last season. They finished 8-6 ahead of the Lake Stevens Vikings in conference play. They were 4th place. They had a shortstop by the name of Riley Parker, who for the longest time was the top-rated prospect in the state that hasn't committed anywhere. Colton looking over at second towards Pierce, does not throw after getting the sign. As Riley Parker was a stud for Glacier Peak in the lineup, along with Pierce Levengood, who was a star-studded junior last year. And Colton getting the sign to stretch. First pitch, swing and a miss, strike 1. And at second team as well as the catcher Jackson Sveum. Colton towing the rubber. And the Vikings, they would beat Glacier Peak in the first round 8-6. They also lost a number of players as well. Jackson Sveum, Jared Friedman was another guy as well. The Vikings shelled him last season. And Colton looking over at second, then the one hopper to Tommy. Count is even at 1-1. A number of other guys as well. Joel Plank, Ian Haig, who was another pitching option for Bob Blair and the Glacier Peak Grizzlies last season. Riley Parker, Matt Odell, and Bobby Martin, who was one of those guys who was on the baseball roster but was mainly known as a basketball player for Glacier Peak. Was a really good one at that. And Colton getting the sign from the catcher Tommy Lindgren is in the stretch. Looks over at second, then back at the plate. Looks over at second again, 1-1. Inside, strike 2. And inside, fastball, 1 ball and 2 strikes. So these two teams started facing off regularly back in 2017. They have not faced off before then, with Glacier Peak being in a 3A classification. Colton to stretch, 1 ball and 2 strikes. And the pitch. And a strike 3 called. He gets Ryan Kinney looking. for the first strikeout for Colton Hogel. And the first out in the bottom of the second. Here's the right fielder, Ethan Barker. He was also walked on a full count. And Colton to stretch, looks over at second, first pitch. And a fly ball foul to start the at-bat, 0-1, fastball. And it starts in 2017. And even though these two teams faced off each other twice in the regular season, they always come to face off against each other for a third time in the postseason in both 2017 and last season. Colton getting the sign from Tommy, no balls and 1 strike. Colton in the stretch, the pitch. Curve, low, ball 1. Ball gets away from Tommy, but the runners will stay. Kento Clymer at first, Pierce Levingood at second base. And so it was the Vikings and Grizzlies in 2017. They exchanged regular season games with both of them getting 1-run victories. The Vikings at home 5-4, Grizzlies at home 3-2. The count is even at 1-1. The stretch by Colton, the pitch. Fastball, fly ball, foul. At 1-2. And Lake Stevens would win in the postseason game that year in the Westco Championship by the final score of 7-3. And then last season, they also exchanged games as well. As at home, Lake Stevens won 16-4. And on the road, Glacier Peak won 14-10, 1-2. The stretch, the windup, the curve upstairs. Count is even at 2-2. And in the Westco first round game, the Vikings won 8-6. And Colton with an even count, 2 balls and 2 strikes. Looks over second, then back to the plate, the pitch. That is a golf shot going in the left field. Tanner Lind running a little forward. He will make the catch. And the throw to second. And Pierce Levingood misunderstood where that ball was going to go. He threw it to... He didn't go to second. He thought that ball was out, but the wind pulled it back in. Tanner Lind then threw to second for a 7-4 double play. Gets Pierce Levingood out at second, and that will end the bottom of the second inning. No runs on 1 hit, no errors. And 1 runner left on. Score is 6-1. The Vikings have a shot to score some more runs. Pierce Levingood not feeling good with himself after that, as the Vikings will bring in the 9-1-2 hitters. Cameron Austin, the center fielder, the leadoff hitter Tanner Lind, and the shortstop Hunter Zelasco. As the score is still 6-1, Glacier Peak over to Lake Stevens Vikings. And we are now back in the top of the third inning. The Vikings, they got a run off of Noah Stingley and Glacier Peak in the top of the second. They are looking to add more. Stingley with the number 9 hitter, Cameron Austin.
Let's go, Cameron!
And the first pitch, a slow roller, just gets past the third baseman, Rogers. Throw to first is a one-hopper to Levingood is in time. A quick throw by the third baseman, Chase Rogers, to get Cameron Austin out. As Chase Rogers, he got rid of the ball. It was a spike throw to the first baseman, Pierce Levingood, but is able to hold on to it for the first out in the top of the third. Here is Tanner Lind back to the top of the order. First pitch, fastball outside, ball 1. So Stingley now with 28 pitches through 2 innings, 24 strikes and 4 balls. Entering this inning, 1-0. Outside, ball 2, fastball. So Stingley last season played in 9 games. It is 1 for 1 with an ERA of 1.65, and that lone loss was the first round game, the 1-1. Ground ball, this one going to the second baseman, Kinney, who throws the first. It is in time for the second out in the third inning. Now here's the shortstop, Hunter Zelasco, struck out looking on a 1-2 count. So Stingley in 9 games last year, 17 innings, 11 hits, 4 earned runs, 8 walks, and 13 strikeouts. And unfortunately, you're not able to get the current season stats on Max Preps. First pitch by Stingley, first pitch, chopper. This one off of the glove of Rogers, fielded by the shortstop. Throw to first is not in time. As the Ball got out of the glove of the third baseman, Chase Rogers, went up in the air, fielded by the the shortstop, Tyson Willis, who tried throwing it to first and is not in time. It was a nice recovery by Willis, but it'll be a runner on first, and it'll be an error for Glacier Peak. 2 errors each for both teams. An error on Rogers. Here's Theron Perkins. Stingley, first pitch. Curveball upstairs, swing and a miss, strike one. And Stingley the stretch. Checks over at first base. Very ominously and slowly. Then gets back in position, throws to first, not in time. To the first baseman, Pierce Levengood. At left field is Peyton Smith. Center field, Drew Brown. Right field is Ethan Barker. Stingley, stretch 0-1. Fly ball is going into left field. Back goes Peyton Smith. He is under it, and he will make the catch to end the top of the third inning. No runs on no hits, 1 error, and 1 runner left on. Score still 6-1. Glacier Peak over Lake Stevens, as they'll be the bottom of the third inning. Grant Doman, Chase Rogers, and Tyson Willis, the bottom 3 hitters, go to the plate against Colton Hogle for the first time. Score still 6-1. Glacier Peak over Lake Stevens. You are listening to Lake Stevens Vikings Varsity Baseball. And we are now back in the bottom of the third inning. Score still Glacier Peak 6, Lake Stevens 1. Colton Hogle facing off against the number 7 hitter, Grant Doman, for the first time this afternoon. And Colton in the stretch, wind up first pitch, fastball, fly ball, foul. Going over the fence, going into the softball field. That almost hits someone on the softball field. Count starts at 0-1. And Colton the stretch. Wind up against a sign. Fastball 0-1. Past the glove of Theron Perkins into the hole in left field. And Glacier Peak starts off with a leadoff single in the bottom of the third by Grant Doman. Here is Chase Rogers, who hit that 2-run single past the first base line back in the bottom of the first inning. And Colton, swing and a miss. And a foul ball. It's a fastball upstairs that he swung at 0-1. And Colton gets a sign from Lindgren. The pitch, curve, strike 1. My mistake, strike 2 looking. Count now at 0-2. Pitcher stretches, checks over at first base a couple of times. Count now, no balls and 2 strikes to pitch. And a fly ball that is in the center field. Cameron Austin, he is under it. Has to move a couple of steps, makes the catch. And for the first out in the bottom of the third, here is Tyson Willis, the shortstop. Walked on 5 pitches and was the final batter for Devin McWaters before he was taken out by Colton Hogle. And then he was out at second on a 0-1 count by Peyton Smith. And Colton, toe in the rubber, again in position, looking over at first base, and now in the stretch. Pitch, swing and a miss, strike 1 to Willis. And Colton looking over at first, a stretch. Count is 0-1, the pitch. Curveball, runner goes. Tommy goes to second, gets him out at second. Yes, he does. He gets Doman at second. For the second out in the bottom of the third inning, Tommy Lindgren does it again. Count now 0-2. And Colton now with the bases empty, the stretch. Wind up in the 0-2 pitch, Colton. Fly ball foul, gets a piece of it. Count stays at 0-2, wind up the pitch. Inside, ball one, almost hits Tyson Willis. Off-speed curve inside. And Colton now to stretch, 1 ball and 2 strikes. Sign from Lindgren, wind up the pitch. Fastball, fly ball, this one going into foul territory. And goes over the fence past the first base line. Count stays at 1 ball and 2 strikes. Colton Hogel so far 18 pitches through an inning and 2/3, entering the bottom of the 3rd inning. At 22 pitches, 9 balls and 13 strikes. Looking pretty good so far. Here with only 1 ball thrown here in the bottom of the 3rd. Colton in the stretch. Gets a sign from Tommy Lindgren, the windup and the pitch. And a check swing, and he went, ends the 3rd inning. It'll be the 2nd strikeout for Colton Hogel, ends the 3rd inning. It is no runs on 1 hit. No errors, and nobody left on. Score is still 6-1. Glacier Peak trying to prevent the comeback of the century here. Noah Stingley going back to the mound here in the top of the 4th. They'll face off against the middle of the order again. And Aaron Lampinen, Trey Long, and Bailey Corley as the Vikings look to shorten this 5-run lead for the Grizzlies. And we are now back in the top of the 4th inning. Glacier Peak leading Lake Stevens by 5, and the Vikings looking to shorten that lead as the Vikings bring in their cleanup hitter, Aaron Lampin. The first pitch to wind up from Noah Stingley. Fastball, hard hit shot going into short center field. That will fall for a base hit. Aaron Lampinen starting off with a first pitch single to start the inning. Now here is Trey Long on an 0-2 pitch, hit a 2-bagger into right center field, and after Ethan Barker, the right fielder, bobbled the ball, went to 3rd. Now the Vikings with a run at first base, a runner at first base. Trey, the only run for the Vikings in this game so far. Noah Stingley in the stretch, the windup, fastball, swing and a miss. And Stingley, the stretch, looking over at first. And Stingley looking over at first and back at the plate. The 0-1. Curve upstairs, ball 1. And Lampinen, currently 5 for 5 on the base paths this season. Stingley looking over at first base and in the stretch, looking at the plate. Then back at first. Throw to first base. Is it in time? No, it is not. Lampinen. Close call at the first base bag. Glacier Peak once again with a pair of pitchers in the bullpen. They had that same scenario back on Friday. And Stingley the stretch. And the windup, 1-1. Fastball. This is a foul. Count now 1-2. Noah ahead of the count. And Stingley looking at first, it's a stretch. Looking over at first again and steps off. And Noah Stingley, last season against Christian Lapierre, threw at first base against him all the time. Throw to first, not in time, and it looks like he's doing the same thing here with a number of Lake Stevens hitters. In this case, he is doing it with Aaron, who is the 3rd Lake Stevens base runner at first base. Throw to first, gets past Levingood. Lampinen going to second base on the error by Stingley, and the Vikings have a runner in scoring position.
Let's go!
Stingley did it a little too much, and it costs him as Lampinen goes to second. And now Hayden Matre going up to the plate again. This is very similar to what we saw from him last season. He threw to first base a lot of times in that first round matchup. In the only other time that the Vikings saw him. And now it looks like he's doing it again. And it looks like that is the first time that that tactic has come back and bit him. As the ball got past the first baseman, Pierce Levingood, Lampinen running in the 11 good, but is able to go to second. Count stays at 1-2. The stretch to wind up. In the dirt, even ball 2. Evens the count at 2 balls and 2 strikes. And Noah toeing the rubber, getting in position, getting the sign from Matre the stretch. Runner at second. 2-2. Fastball. Slow roller, foul past the third base line. Count stays even at 2-2. As Stingley getting in some trouble for the first time this afternoon. In terms of pitch count, toes to rubber, gets in position, looks at second, then back at the plate. The 0-2, the stretch. Another fastball off speed. Another foul. And Noah in the stretch again. 2-2. The wind up, the pitch. And this will hit Trey on the arm. And Lake Stevens, their first 2 base runners are on first and second. Here is Bailey Corley, the designated hitter, on an 0-2 count. He grounded out to the second baseman, Ryan Kinney, and got an RBI out of it, his 4th of the year. Timeout by Glacier Peak as Noah Stingley is being approached by the assistant coach along with the catcher Hayden Matre. As Noah Stingley currently sitting at 42 pitches. Bailey Corley, a power hitter with a chance to do something here for the Vikings. At a time like this, Bailey entering this game at a .235 average, 4 for 17, 2 runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts, and has been hit twice. And the highlight of the year, once again, is that solo home run in the final non-conference game of the year against the Meadowdale Mavericks. Bailey looking for that first pitch as well. Wind up, first pitch. Fast. Gets past the catcher Matre, and the runners will advance on the wild pitch. Bailey tried bunting for it, but gets out of the way in time. It was a fastball that got past the catcher Matre, and a wild pitch moves Lampin in the third and Trey Long to second. Count now 1-0. Vikings have 2 runners in scoring position. The stretch by Stingley and the wind up in the pitch. Curve, strike 1 looking. Fastball low. Aaron Lampinen at third, Trey Long at second again. The stretch by Stingley, looks over at second, then back of the plate, wind up. And a swing and a miss, strike 2, off-speed fastball. No outs in the 4th inning. Bailey looking to add a couple of runs on the board, get a couple more RBIs to his name. 1-2, the stretch, the windup. Low, ball 2. Through a fastball low and outside. Count is now even at 2-2. Stingley toeing the rubber, runner at second and third. And the windup. And a ground ball. This is foul. Another fastball low, count even at 2-2. Stingley in the stretch. Runners on second and third. Count stays at 2-2. Wind up. Curve. Upstairs and inside. Ball 3. And Stingley in the stretch. Wind up in the full count. The pitch. Fastball swing and a miss, strike 3. As Noah strikes out Bailey Corley for the first out in the 4th inning. His 6th strikeout of the afternoon. Now here is Tate Brust, the first baseman. He got hit on an 0-1 pitch and was stranded at first. And Noah, the windup, first pitch. Fastball foul. Count starts at 0-1. Tate Brust back in the second inning. He got hit on an 0-1 count on the forearm. It was the second time this year that he got hit. As Stingley, still with runners on second and third. A base hit can knock in two. Stingley, the windup. Fastball, fly ball. That is out, foul. That one barely staying away from the softball field as it hits the fence. Count is 0-2. Count is 0-2. Stingley, the windup, fastball, foul. Count staying at 0-2. Tate fighting to keep the at-bat alive, and they get a couple runs on the board for the Vikings. Noah, the windup, curve, foul ball. Noah trying something different here. This time throwing a curve. Glacier Peak, compared to Lake Stevens, is due to their record no longer in playoff contention, at least as much as we know. 0-2, fastball. This will hit Tate. Nope, that is a foul. As Noah threw inside the Tate Brust again. This time it looks like it hit the bottom of the bat. Count stays at 0-2 after 5 pitches and 3 foul balls. Tate staying alive, finding that pitch. And the 0-2 pitch, Stingley, the windup, fastball. Strike 3 called, gets Tate looking. Strikeout number 7 for Stingley on the afternoon. Here is Tommy Lindgren, struck on a 2-2 pitch back in the top of the second. And Noah, the windup. First pitch, swing and a miss, strike 1, fastball. And Noah, the windup. Fastball gets past the catcher. Lampinen will score on the wild pitch. And the score is now Glacier Peak 6, Lake Stevens 2. That one getting way past the catcher, Hayden Matre. Trey will go to third. Count is now even at 1-1 with another run for the Vikings 90 feet away. That one looked like it hit the backstop and just stopped right in front. Count is now 1-1, windup. Fastball, bunts for it. This one going down the first baseline. Stingley toss it to first. It is in time for the third out. And a nice bunt by Tommy Lindgren. But it will end in the third out in the top of the fourth. Another run will score. The score is now Lake Stevens 2, Glacier Peak 6. It is 1 run off of 1 hit, 1 error, and 1 runner left on. Glacier Peak now leads by 4 as we go into the bottom of the 4th inning. Colton Hogle face off against the top 3 hitters, Peyton Smith, Drew Brown, and Pierce Levengood. For a second time, it is the 3rd time around for those 3 hitters in the lineup. Again, the score, Glacier Peak 6, Lake Stevens 2 as we go into the bottom of the 4th inning. And we are now back in the bottom of the 4th inning. Colton Hogle facing off against the top of the order for the 2nd time this afternoon. The top of the order for the Grizzlies coming up for the 3rd time this afternoon. In 4 innings, it'll be Peyton Smith, 0 for 1 with a run scored. It got hit back in the 1st inning. And the first pitch by Colton, wind up, first pitch, fastball, tries bunting for it. This one going down the third base line. Theron cannot pick it up. And that'll be a bunt single for Peyton Smith to start the fourth. As both the pitcher Colton Hogel and the third baseman Theron Perkins both running for it. There's a fastball above the strike zone, but Smith still is going for it. And Glacier Peak has a base runner at first. Here is Drew Brown, 0 for 2, a strikeout and a fielder's choice, both in the first inning and in the second. Throw to first, not in time. Throw to first, not in time to the first baseman, Tate Brust. Colton now with 33 pitches through 2 2/3 innings. Colton the stretch, first pitch. And a low ball one. Colton in the stretch, 1 ball, no strikes. And the pitch, fastball, hard hit ball. This one going in the center. Cameron Austin looking for it. Make the catch for the first out in the bottom of the fourth. Now here is Pierce Levingood, the first baseman. So far a star player this afternoon for Glacier Peak, one of the many contributors to the 6-run, or my mistake, now the 4-run lead for the Grizzlies with 2 doubles, 1 an RBI double back in the first and a leadoff double in the second, in which he was picked off on the final play in the bottom of the second for a 7-4 double play. First pitch, fastball upstairs, ball 1. And Colton looking at first. And the stretch, now looking at the plate. And the windup and the fastball, ball 2 upstairs. And Colton in the stretch, looking over at first. Looks to throw, doesn't throw it. Colton smiling afterwards, having a fun time doing that. Looks over at first base, 2 balls, no strikes. And the stretch. And Colton to 2-0. And a 1-hopper to Tommy. Throw to second. Is it in time? It is not in time to get Peyton Smith. Count is now 3-0, and Glacier Peak has another run in scoring position. The first one since Levingood in the second inning. Now Josh White's calling to the home plate umpire to put Levingood on first. They're going to intentionally walk Levingood on a 3-0 count. They're going to bring in the catcher, Hayden Matre. Got on base on an error by Tate Brust in the first inning, and then was walked on a full count in the second, and was replaced by Kento Clymer on both occasions. As in the second inning, Clymer was stranded at first, while in the first inning, Clymer scored the stretch by Colton Hogel. Runners on first and second with 1 out. First pitch, fastball outside, ball 1. Colton in the stretch. Toe in the rubber, looking at second. Count is 1-0, looking at second. Back of the plate, 1-0. Fly ball, this one going in the right field. Trey running for it. This will fall foul as Trey runs into the chain link fence right next to the right field fence in foul territory. As that evens the count at 1-1. That was right near the foul pole. That is a lot of power.
Here we go.
As Colton waits for Trey to get back in position. As now we're getting a piece of sunshine out here amongst the dark clouds. 1-1 curve. It's upstairs. Ball 2. Count stays at 2 balls and 1 strike. The stretch by Colton. Looks over at second, then back at the plate. The pitch, 2-1, fastball low. Ball 3. And the runners will stay after Tommy could not find the ball. Count stays at 3-1. So the next series for both of these teams, Lake Stevens finishing off against Mariner in what should be 2 conference games, but due to a number of postponed, my mistake, a number of forfeited games that Mariner had to conclude with. Wesco said the rest of their games are non-conference games. The wind up 3-1, fly ball, that is out, foul, past the left field line again. Count is full at 3-2.
Come on, man. Good boy.
And Colton towing the rubber, full count, 3-2.
Ground ball. Let's go.
Runner on first and second, looks over at second base and back at the plate, full count, fly ball. That one is playable. This one going to short right field. Lampinen calling for it. Trey Long making the catch for the second out. He calls for it in the last second, and he makes the catch for the second out of the 5th. Now here is the second baseman, Ryan Kinney, 0 for 1 with a walk, a strikeout, and a run.
Hey, who wants a baseball? Let's go.
Colton getting the sign from the catcher, the stretch. Runner on first and second. The wind and the first pitch. Swing and a miss, strike 1 to Kinney. And Colton, the sign, the stretch, timeout by Kinney. So the Lake Stevens Vikings, they need to win this game if they want to keep their season alive. As in, if they do not win, their playoff chances are done. The 2-1 fastball swing and a miss. Off speed, 0-2.
Here. Come on now.
And Colton getting the sign. Runner on first and second. The 0-2. Ground ball. This one going to Zelasco. Throws it to Tate at first. It is in time to end the bottom of the 4th. No runs on 1 hit. No errors and 2 runners left on. No runs for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies since that 6-run first inning, but the Vikings are chipping away as we go into the top of the 5th. A new pitcher for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. As they'll face off against the 9-1 and 2 hitters for the Lake Stevens Vikings. Cameron Austin, Tanner Lind, and Hunter Zelasco, as Noah Stingley is done for the night, trying to get the name of the player here. And number 24, Dylan Owen, will be on the mound as we go into the top of the 5th. Score 6-2, Glacier Peak over Lake Stevens. And we are now back in the top of the 5th inning. Lake Stevens, they trail by 4, and they have a chance to try and get some more runs out here on the board as the Grizzlies bring in a new pitcher in number 24, Dylan Owen, to replace Noah Stingley. The first pitch, the windup. Fastball, first pitch, swing and a miss, strike 1. This is to the center fielder, Cameron Austin. Grounded out to the third baseman, Chase Rogers, on a first pitch bunt. And he almost got safe, but it was a nice play by Rogers that got him out for the first out in the 3rd, the 0-1. And a slow curve one-hopper to the catcher, Hayden Matre. Count is even at 1-1. He'll face off against the 9-1 and 2 hitters, the center fielder, Cameron Austin, left fielder, Tanner Lind, and the shortstop, Hunter Zelasco, as they'll try to make something and blow this game wide open. Fastball inside, 2 balls and 1 strike. So Noah Stingley, 4 innings, 59 pitches, 2 hits, 2 runs, 1 earned, no walks, and 7 strikeouts. 2 hit batters and 2 wild pitches on line for the win. The windup and the fastball swing and a missed strike 2. Count is now even at 2 balls and 2 strikes. Owens in the rubber. Count is even at 2-2. And the windup, pitch, fastball, foul. As Lake Stevens, they scored a run in the 2nd inning and they scored a run in the 4th, both off of those 2 hits. And the wind up, the pitch, curve. And a strike 3 call. Dylan Owen striking out Cameron Austin on a curveball to start the top of the 5th inning. Now we go to the top of the order in Tanner Lind, 0 for 2 with a strikeout and a ground out. And Dylan Owen stepping off. And Owen the wind up, the pitch, fastball, strike 1 looking. And Owen, the stretch, the wind up, 0-1. Hard hit ball, that's foul, opposite field, going into the Glacier Peak bullpen. Count now at 0-2. Now Owen, wind up ahead of the count, 0-2. Check swing, tries to curve, but goes inside, gets past the catcher Hayden Matre, 1-2.
Here we go. I'm back.
And the 1-2, fastball upstairs, count is even at 2-2 to Tanner.
I'm back.
And a timeout as a foul ball from the junior varsity game goes on to the varsity field as it goes above the Glacier Peak dugout. We've seen that a million times from a foul ball from one of these games, just not, in this case, the other way around. Pitch, upstairs, full count, 3-2. Fastball just gets outside. So Glacier Peak, their final series will be against the Cascade Bruins on the road and then at home, and then a final non-conference game. Payoff pitch, fastball, strike 3 called against Tanner looking. On a fastball in the outside corner for the 2nd out in the top of the 5th. Here is Hunter Zelasco, 0 for 1 with a strikeout and got on base on an error by the 3rd baseman Chase Rogers. And Owen, the first pitch, fly ball, that is going out foul. Ethan Barker running for it, and he will not go anywhere near the ball as he'll go over the fence along the right field line. Count starts at 0-1. And Owen the pitch, and a curveball hits the helmet of Zelasco. Loses his sight for a quick second as his helmet moves down to his eyes and adjusts it and goes to first. Now we have a runner on first base with 2 outs for Theron Perkins. Theron 0 for 2 with a strikeout and a fly out to the left fielder Peyton Smith. A very well hit ball too. And Owen's first pitch, fastball, swing and a miss, strike 1. Owen looking at first. The stretch. Looking at first again, the 0-1. Fly ball, that is, looks like going out for a foul. Pierce Levingood running for it, going near the fence again, past the first base line. Count now, no balls and 2 strikes. And now Dylan Owen ahead of the count, looking to strike out the side here in the 5th inning. Looks over at first base. And the stretch, the 0-2 curve. Ground ball, short ground ball to Chase Rogers. Throws it first. It gets out of the glove of the first baseman, Levingood. It'll be another error by Chase Rogers. And Aaron Lampinen now goes to the plate. It'll be Hunter Zelasco will go to second. It was a tough throw by Rogers, and Levingood tried to one-hop it again. But it gets in and out of the glove of the senior first baseman, Pierce Levingood. Here is Aaron Lampinen, who got a first pitch single off of Stingley. Hard hit shot, this one to the shortstop, Willis, who makes a diving play right near the second base bag. And that will end the top of the 5th inning. It is no runs, no hits, 1 error, and 2 runners left on. Score still 6-2 Glacier Peak over Lake Stevens, as Colton Hogel will go back to the mound. He'll face off against the 6, 7, and 8 hitters, Ethan Barker, Grant Doman, and Chase Rogers. Once again, the score 6-2 Glacier Peak over the Vikings. And we are now back into the bottom of the 5th inning. Glacier Peak with a new pitcher in Dylan Owen. They prevent the Vikings from scoring, making it stay a 6-2 game, as Colton Hogel, who's thrown 48 pitches through 3 2/3, will face off against the number 6 hitter, Ethan Barker, for the second time. Barker 0 for 1 with a walk and a run. First pitch, a strike one looking fastball upstairs. They'll face off against the 6, 7, and 8 hitters, Ethan Barker, Grant Doman, and Chase Rogers. And Hogel the stretch, the windup, and the fastball, hard hit ball going in the left. That's a laser foul. Count now 0-2. So Glacier Peak, after this game, they'll play 2 games against the Cascade Bruins. And then after that, they will play a final non-conference game. There was a game that was scheduled to be played about a couple of weeks ago against Mercer Island. That game will be this Saturday here at Glacier Peak High School. Count is 0-2. Wind up, curve, inside, upstairs, ball 1. And Colton, the stretch, a smirk, 1-2. Fly ball center field, Cameron Austin under it, and he makes the catch for the first out. I don't know if you saw that. Colton Hogel, he gets in position, he gets in the stretch, he makes his little smirk, and then he throws the pitch. He does it a number of times, but just something about it makes it look like Jared Leto's Joker out there on the mound. Brings out the 7 hitter, Grant Doman, the designated hitter. A base hit in the 3rd, got on base on an error by McWaters in the 1st. And Colton to wind up first pitch. And a off-speed curve in the dirt, ball 1. And Colton to wind up. Fastball, check swing, ball 2. Colton probably smiling because of Trey Long over at right field. In the stretch, Colton 2 balls, no strikes. The windup, fastball, outside, ball 3. And just gets outside too. Colton 3 balls, no strikes. Wind up, fastball, strike 1 looking. So the hitters for the Vikings will be the 5, 6, and 7 hitters against Dylan Owen, Trey Long, Bailey Corley, and Tate Brust. See if they can make something out of this 4-run lead as well. 3 balls, 1 strike, the pitch. Low, ball 4, fastball under the strike zone. It'll be a 1-out walk for Colton Hogel against Grant Doman. This is the 2nd walk in now 4 innings for Colton, bringing his ERA down a lot. So it brings up Chase Rogers 1 for 2 with that 2-run single in the first inning, then flew out to Cameron Austin in the third. Throw to first, not in time. Colton the stretch, throw to first. Did he get him? No, he did not. As Colton looking at Grant Doman over at first base. Colton looking over at first. Throw to first again. Does he get him? He does not. Each throw getting closer than the last over at first base. Colton smiling over there because of what's going on. He's having fun. You just know it. Then the fastball upstairs, ball 1 to start the at-bat. And Colton looking back at first, a stretch 0-1, outside fastball, ball 2. Timeout by Lake Stevens. Tommy Lindgren walking up to the mound, talking to Colton, who's thrown a solid number of innings for Lake Stevens, a considerable number as well. Currently at 59 pitches. As Chase Rogers stepping back in the batter's box, Tommy Lindgren going back to home plate. Colton 2-0 the stretch. The wind up of the pitch. Fastball, foul ball. Count at 2-1. Throw to first, nope. Colton stepping off the mound, both Tanner Linden and Trey Long reacting to that play. 2 balls and 1 strike. Colton the pitch. Fast foul. Count now 2-2 off speed. Count is even at 2-2. Colton looking over at first base. The stretch. 2 balls and 2 strikes to pitch. In the dirt. Ball 3, full count. Colton with 2 strikeouts so far in the afternoon. Looks over at first to stretch. The payoff pitch outside, ball 4. Back-to-back walks by Colton Hogel. Puts runners on first and second. Here's Tyson Willis. Timeout by Lake Stevens. Looking over in the bullpen. Yep, they are going to. Looks like they're going to take Colton Hogel out of the game. Yes, they will. Colton Hogel is out. They're going to bring in a new pitcher in Theron Perkins as Ethan Jansen will play at third base. So we'll take a quick break here in the bottom of the 5th. Glacier Peak leading the Vikings 6-2. As they have 2 runners on with 1 out. And we are now back in the bottom of the 5th inning. The Vikings bring in their 3rd pitcher of the afternoon in number 6, Theron Perkins, as playing at third for Theron will be number 25, Ethan Jansen. Theron steps off as he'll face off against the shortstop, Tyson Willis, who is 0 for 1 with a walk and a strikeout in the 1st inning and in the 3rd inning. Currently, it is Chase Rogers at first base, Grant Doman at second. Theron, the stretch in the first pitch. Fastball upstairs, ball 1. And Colton, 4 innings, 63 pitches, and 3 hits. Currently, no earned runs, although that may change as there are runners on first and second. 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. The pitch, fastball, fly ball, that is out foul. Evens the count at 1-1. And Theron in the stretch looking at second. And looking back at home as Doman at second tries bunting. That goes towards the pitcher, Theron. Tosses it to first. It is in time for the second out. It'll be a sacrifice bunt for Tyson Willis, as they will move Doman to third and Rogers to second. Now we go to the top of the order in Peyton Smith, who got a base hit back in the fourth inning. Top of the order for the fourth time around. In the first inning, he got hit on a 1-2 count and scored. He got a fielder's choice later in that inning and was later out on a fielder's choice in the next at-bat, and then got a base hit in the fourth. First pitch, outside, ball one. Count starts at a 1-0 count. There again, the dirt off his shoes before he puts his toe in the rubber. And I guess a sign. And in the stretch, runners at second and third, swung on. This is a fair ball. 2 runs are going to score. Doman's going to score. Chase Rogers riding around third. He's going to score. And it'll be a 2-run single for Peyton Smith. And Glacier Peak now once again leads by 6. Now I'll bring up Drew Brown now. 0 for 3, strikeout, fielder's choice. And a fly out to the center fielder, Cameron Austin. And Theron looking over at first to stretch. And the first pitch upstairs, ball one. So those 2 runs will go towards Colton Hogle in an otherwise solid outing. 4 innings and 3 hits, 2 walks, and my mistake, 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. And the 1-0, Theron, foul ball. Fastball count is even at 1 ball and 1 strike. And it looks like for the junior varsity team for both Glacier Peak and Lake Stevens, the game is just about over. So the JV team is currently now onto the bleachers. It'll be a wild pitch for Theron Perkins on the 1-1 count. It moves Peyton Smith to second. Count is now 2 balls and 1 strike. And now Peyton Smith on the ground. It looks like he banged up his arm. Sliding in the second. He's holding on to his left forearm, his left shoulder. And the Glacier Peak manager, Bob Blair, slowly walking towards the bag to check on him. And now he is standing back up. He is standing on the bag. It looked like a scary incident. And Peyton Smith, he goes to second on the wild pitch. It's the second time this afternoon that is the case. But as he slides into second, he is laying down right next to the bag. He is holding on to his left shoulder. Probably banged it up while sliding in the second. But he is up now. He is fine. 2 balls and 1 strike. And the Grizzlies have another runner in scoring position. The 2-1 inside, ball 3. And Dylan Owen now in the bullpen warming up. For the Grizzlies, 3 balls and 1 strike. The pitch and a slow foul ball opposite field. And it lands right in front of the Lake Stevens dugout. Count is now full at 3-2. The second full count in the inning, and the first one against Theron.
Go, Theron.
And Theron getting the sign from Tommy the stretch. The pitch. And a slow roller towards the on-deck hitter, Pierce Levingood. Count stays at a full count, 3-2. So Lake Stevens playing the next 2 games against the Mariner Marauders, starting with a road game at Mariner. On April 24th tomorrow, and then we'll play their final home game of the year on April 26th. A swing and a miss, strike 3 and a full count to end the bottom of the 5th. But 2 runs will score, 2 runs on 1 hit. No errors and 1 runner left on to score now. Glacier Peak 8, Lake Stevens 2. Dylan Owen going back to the mound. The face-off against the 5, 6, and 7 hitters, Trey Long, Bailey Corley, and Tate Bruss, as they now try to cut what is once again a 6-run deficit for the Vikings against the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. And we are now back into the top of the 6th inning. Glacier Peak now once again has a 6-run lead over the Lake Stevens Vikings. And the Vikings trying to keep their playoffs hopes alive here. Dylan Owen against Trey Long. First pitch, ball 1, upstairs fastball. It'll be a defensive change for the Glacier Peak Grizzlies. Playing at right field for Ethan Barker will be number 2, Nathan Taystad. And the windup, the 1-0. Hard hit shot going into left field. Back goes Peyton Smith, looking back, looking up, makes the catch near the wall. A very well hit ball by Trey Long. And he is at second, thinking that he dropped the ball. He was running over to second base. He thought he dropped the ball, but Peyton Smith is able to make the catch in left center. Now here is Bailey Corley 0 for 1 with an RBI. The only RBI for the Vikings this afternoon. First pitch, a slow ground ball fielded by Kinney. Throw to first is in time for the second out in the 6th. Now here is Tate Bruss, the first baseman. 0 for 1, got hit and struck out. And Owen, the windup. First pitch, fastball upstairs. He threw 18 pitches in that 5th inning. 5 balls and 13 strikes. As so far against now his 3rd batter of the inning has thrown 4. Here's number 5. Wind up the pitch. Fastball, fly foul. Evens the count at 1-1. I don't know about you, but I think that was recorded. Count is even at 1-1. Wind up, curve upstairs. Lost control of it a little bit. Ball 2. The first time around against Dylan Owen. And the 2-1, Owen. Upstairs fastball, ball 3. And Tate Bruss in position. These wind up by Owen inside, ball 4. And is the first walk by Glacier Peak pitching this afternoon. And the 3rd overall in this entire series for 4 pitchers. Now here is Tommy Lindgren, 0 for 2 with a strikeout and a ground out to the pitcher Stingley to end the 4th. And Owen looking at first. First pitch low. Try to fastball low in the dirt, ball 1. And Owen looking over at first base towards Tate. Getting in position to stretch. Wind up pitch. Ground ball. This will go into Kinney, who tosses it to Levingood at first. It'll be the 3rd out in the 6th. No runs on no hits, no errors, and 1 runner left on. Score stays at 8-2. Glacier Peak, Theron Perkins out on the mound. The pitch in the bottom of the 6th. Pierce Levingood, Hayden Matre, and Ryan Kinney. And the 3, 4, and 5 hitters for the Grizzlies, looking to extend the 8-2 lead before they would go back to the field for what could be the final inning on offense. Bottom of the 6th, once again 8-2. Glacier Peak over the Vikings. And we are now back in the bottom of the 6th inning. Glacier Peak now leads by the score of 8-2. And Pierce Levengood, 2 for 2 with 2 doubles, an RBI, and a run. First time against Theron, first pitch, fastball. Ball gets past the catcher, Tommy Lindgren, ball 1 inside. He'll be the 3, 4, and 5 hitters. Pierce Levengood, a pinch hitter for Hayden Matre. That is Aiden Ferry, who hit that bases clearing double back in the top of the 7th inning. And then there is Ryan Kinney, the second baseman. And the 1-0, low ball 2. There's another change in the Glacier Peak lineup in addition to Nathan Tastad playing for Ethan Barker. 2-0, fastball, strike 1 looking. Theron, 2 balls and 1 strike, the windup. And the pitch, a chopper that gets past the Glacier Peak first base coach and goes and hits right next to the Lake Stevens dugout, evens the count at 2-2.
There we go, hard out.
And Theron, and the sign from Tommy, the windup, the pitch, fastball, hard hit shot going into right center field. Pierce Levengood, 3 for 3 on the afternoon with a leadoff single in the bottom of the 6th. Now bring up the pinch hitter for Glacier Peak. That is number 23, Aiden Ferry. He'll be pinch hitting for the catcher, Hayden Matre. Was back in the 7th inning when Ferry pinch hit for the leadoff hitter Peyton Smith. And off a Tate Bruss back in the top of the 7th, hit a bases clearing double that scored Kinney, Rogers, and Willis. First pitch, fly ball, foul, fastball upstairs. That's us. Even though Ferry got a piece of it, it still sounded like a screamer. Count starts at 0-1. And Theron looking at first, gets back to home. Swing and a missed strike 2. Count now at no balls and 2 strikes. Theron entering this game, his 8th appearance this year, 1-2 with an ERA of 1.83, 19 in the 3rd innings, allowing 18 hits. And the pitch, a 1-hopper, a curve to Ferry. It goes in the dirt. Lindgren misses it for a second, but Levengood stays at first.
Up there.
Has a lot of 18 hits, 5 earned runs. He has walked 8 batters and has struck out 16 for the Vikings. It looks like he might make that 18 here. Fly ball, that is a screamer going into short right field. And Lampinen, Trey Long, and it'll be caught by Aaron Lampinen in short right field, who falls right in front of Trey Long, the right fielder, for the second out. That was a screamer by Aiden Ferry, but it'll be caught for the second out of the 6th. Here's the second baseman, Ryan Kinney, 0 for 2, a walk, strikeout, and a ground out to Hunter Zelasco to end the 4th inning. Now go for the first out of the 6th. Looks over at first, a stretch by Theron. And the first pitch, low off-speed curve outside ball 1. And Theron looking at first, inside, ball 2.
Go 6. Go 6, come back. Go Theron.
And Theron, toe in the rubber, looking at first. The 2-0, ground ball fielded by Tate, who throws to second, and it gets past Levengood. The second base, Levengood goes to third. And Tate looking to go for 2 and airmails it to the shortstop.
Ground ball.
Hunter's Alasko that moves Levengood to third. And so it'll be an error by the Vikings, their third error of the afternoon. I don't care that the scoreboard says it's their second, but it's their third. And now here is Nathan Taystad back on the top of the sixth inning. He was playing at right field for Ethan Barker. First pitch, strike one looking fastball. And there in the stretch, low, strike two. Ooh. That one is low and inside. And the Glacier Peak manager, Bob Blair, now talking with Taystad. The count is now 0-2. It was telling them about that last pitch. It was low and inside. It was unhittable. But the home plate umpire calling it a strike as the count is now 0-2. Upstairs, ball one. And Theron looking at first, 1-2. Count is even at 2 balls and 2 strikes. Grant Doman staying in a spot as the designated hitter. He is currently on deck. Count is now 2 balls and 2 strikes. Theron digging in the rubber. Got the sign from Tommy Lindgren. Looks over at first, then back at the plate, the stretch. And the 2-2 full count. Fastball low in the dirt. And Theron looking at first to stretch. Full count 3-2. And the pitch, fastball upstairs, ball 4 is now bases loaded with 1 out. As the 7th walk by Lake Stevens pitching, here is the DH, Grant Doman. He is 1 for 1 with a single and 2 runs. Got on base on an error by McWaters and later scored. And then got on base on a walk against Colton Hogel and then scored on that 2-run single by Peyton Smith. Theron, first pitch, strike one looking right down the middle, fastball. And Theron with the bases loaded, the stretch, 0-1. Fastball upstairs inside. Count is even at 1-1. Glacier Peak threatening to get more runs on the board. Pierce Levengood at third, Ryan Kinney at second, and Nathan Taystad at first. And Theron the 1-1. Curve upstairs, ball 2. Two balls and 1 strike to stretch, fastball, ball 3. Theron putting his toe in the rubber, bases loaded. Getting the sign from Tommy. 3-1, wind up, the pitch, fly ball, foul, count is full. Glacier Peak threatening with more runs. Levengood at third base, Kinney at second, Taystad at first to stretch. Payoff, and it is a hard hit shot going at the center field, and it will be away from Cameron Austin. 1 run's going to score. Kinney's riding around third. Taystad staying at third. It's a 2-run double by Grant Doman. Score now, Glacier Peak 10, Lake Stevens 2. Another 2-run double for Doman. In the second consecutive game, it scores 11 good to third. And Kinney from second. Taystad goes to third, brings up Chase Rogers, and it's a timeout by Lake Stevens. Josh White looking like he may bring in his fourth pitcher of the game. The entire infield moves into the mound along with the catcher, Tommy Lindgren. We'll take a quick break here in the bottom of the sixth. Glacier Peak has gone to double digits after a 2-run double by Grant Doman. Scores now 10-2 Glacier Peak over the Lake Stevens Vikings. And we are now back in the bottom of the sixth inning. Glacier Peak leading Lake Stevens 10-2 and have a chance to end the game here in a shortened 6 innings. First pitch, a fastball foul to third baseman Chase Rogers. They're currently up by 8 Glacier Peak. If Grant Doman scores from second, then this game is over due to the 10-run mercy rule, as it is currently in the bottom of the sixth inning. Count is 0-1. Theron, curve, ball gets away from the catcher Tommy Lindgren. Throw to home is not in time. A run will score, as Taystad will score from third on the wild pitch, and Doman going to third. So the score is now 11-2, and the count now even at 1-1. It was a curve outside, hit the dirt, and got away from Tommy. As a base hit could end the game due to the 10-run mercy rule. 1 run in at third base. Glacier Peak currently up by 9 to 1-1. Chopper, this one foul. Past a diving tape brush. Count is now 1-2. Theron ahead of the count. Getting the sign from Tommy. Runner at third, the stretch. And the windup in the pitch. Strike 3 called, and it gets Chase Rogers looking to end the sixth. It is 3 runs off of 2 hits, 1 error, and 1 runner left on. The Grizzlies score 3, and they lead by, or my mistake, that was the second out. First pitch, swing and a miss, strike 1. Well, my mistake, I thought that was the third out, the 0-1. Inside. Count is even at 1-1. As at the plate is the shortstop Tyson Willis. That was the second strikeout for Theron. 1-1 inside, ball 2. A fastball inside on the past 2 pitches. Doman at third base, Theron in the stretch. 2 balls and 1 strike windup. Swing and a miss. Evens the count at 2-2. Theron ahead of the count, wind up in the pitch. Upstairs, ball 3, full count. Willis this time ducking for it. And Theron, the stretch, runner at third, payoff. Swing and a miss, strike 3. Now that is the actual end of the 6th. Now that is the actual end of the 6th. It is 3 runs on 2 hits, 1 error, and 1 runner left on. Lake Stevens, they trail by 9 with Dylan Owen on the mound in the top of the 7th. It'll be Cameron Austin, Tanner Lind, and Hunter Zelasco trying to pull off the comeback of the century as they trail 11-2. And we are now back in the top of the 7th. Glacier Peak, they score 3 more runs in the bottom of the 6th. Scores now 11-2 over the Lake Stevens Vikings. Dylan Owen back on the mound looking to pitch his third full inning of work against the number 9 hitter Cameron Austin. First pitch, fastball, strike 1 looking. Dylan has thrown 27 pitches through 2 innings, 18 in the 5th, 9 in the 6th. And the first pitch is a fastball for a strike one. Wind up in the 0-2. Fastball, swing and a miss, strike two. Face off against Cameron Austin, Tanner Lind, and Hunter Zelasco. And the windup, the 0-2. Fly ball, foul. Cameron getting a piece of it. That goes into the softball field. As the Glacier Peak catcher over at the softball field notices that a ball has left the fell in the outfield. Count stays at 0-2. Owen with one strikeout. Low. Tried an off-speed fastball and an 0-2 goes in the dirt for a ball one. Dylan Owen with two strikeouts through 2 innings so far. Count at 1-2. Owen, the windup and the pitch. Inside. Ball two. Another fastball inside ball two. Count is even. And Owen, fastball, no. In the dirt. Going to the catcher, Matre. Now it's a full count, 3-2. And Owen in the stretch. His steps off. Timeout. Oh, it should be a timeout. Josh White, the first base coach, saying, is that a balk? It looked like he stepped off wrong. Now he's back. Full count. Slow fly ball. This will be a bloop single into left center. And Cameron Austin starts off the top of the 7th with a leadoff single. The pitch after a questionable move was made by Dylan Owen. It looked like it would be a balk, but no balk was called. We go to the top of the order for the 4th time around here in the top of the 7th, and Tanner Lind. Yeah, timeout by Glacier Peak, Hayden Matre. Going up to the mound, it'll be Tanner Lind, struck out looking in the first, grounded out to the second baseman, Ryan Kinney, in the 3rd inning, and then struck out looking again. He was the second batter and the most recent strikeout victim against Dylan Owen back in the 5th. And Owen looks at first, look now back. Fastball inside, ball one.
Let's go, get him, babe!
And Owen throw to first. Not in time to get Cameron. Cameron Austin a perfect 10 for 10 in stolen bases. Try and have a chance to salvage what he can. Here in the top of the 7th, Dylan Owen in the stretch, looking at first, to 1-0. Outside, ball two. Currently warming up for Glacier Peak is the freshman Will Franklin. He was on the mound for the Grizzlies back in the 7th. And it looked like as though they might have used him, might going to be using him tomorrow as a starting pitcher. And a fastball, 2-0, strike one looking. And Will Franklin on Friday's game through 3 innings, striking out 5 batters, allowing no runs, while Glacier Peak ran away with the game back at Lake Stevens High School. And a 2-1 pitch, foul ball. Count is even at 2-2. Tanner getting a piece of it.
Tanner! Right now, kid. Get it done. Let's go, run away, let's go. Hey, here's your big one, man.
And Owen ahead of the count, 2-2 the stretch. The pitch, fastball. This one a slow roller to the second baseman. Kitty throws to Levin, good for 2, and it gets him for a 4-3 double play. And Lake Stevens down to their final out in the shortstop, Hunter Zelasco, 0 for 1. A strikeout in the first inning, an error in the 3rd, and then got hit in the 5th. Has reached first base in his last 2 plate appearances. Dylan Owen, the first pitch, and a fastball, strike one looking.
Go Hunt. Go get him, man. Go 10. on, sir. Up there.
Count starts at 0-1. Owen in the windup. And the curve, swing, and a miss, strike two.
Go on, sir.
And Dylan Owen, one strike away, the windup. And the fastball upstairs, ball one.
Let's go, kid. I'm there. Let's go,
Glacier
kid.
Peak, they're already out of playoff contention.
There.
So all they could do right now is knock another team out of playoff contention. 1 ball and 2 strikes to wind up. The fastball swing and a miss, strike three. And the Glacier Peak Grizzlies have swept the Lake Stevens Vikings, and not only that, they have ended the Vikings' chances at the 2019 West King playoffs, and with authority as Glacier Peak beats the Lake Stevens Vikings by a final score of 11-2. And the third strikeout by Dylan Owen. The winning pitcher is Noah Stingley, who indeed has gotten redemption for last season. And the losing pitcher, Devin McWaters, who is now down to 1-5. Glacier Peak at 9-10 with a conference record of 4-6, while Lake Stevens will be now going down to an 8-9 record, and now the best they could do is to hope to get a 500 record in overall record now, as conference play is now over for them. They have a conference record of 3-9, and once again they are now out of playoff contention, as Kamiak will take the final spot. They were playing the Mariner Marauders today and on Friday, and knowing the Mariner Marauders, they might have swept them. And speaking of Mariner, that will be the Vikings' next opponent. It will be on April 24th at Mariner High School, and then on Friday, April 26th, that will be the final game of the 2019 varsity baseball season for the Lake Stevens Vikings against the Mariner Marauders. And then, due to the conclusion of this game, there will be no playoffs for the Lake Stevens Vikings. Again, the final score, Glacier Peak 11, Lake Stevens 2. Here from Glacier Peak High School in Snohomish, Washington at 6:22 p.m. My name is Payne Patchett. You have been listening to Lake Stevens Vikings Varsity Baseball.